Snow falls down on Downing Street in this scene of Tory jingle hell. Behold the vile, disgusting fascists. Oh, and there's some over there with banners as well. Santa looks like he's protesting. Yes, we demand a general election at once. For Christmas, I would like the Tories out. I think we're all sick of them and their conveyor belt of conservatives. Our Sillers in the warm bank. I don't blame you, Chook. Matt Midlife Crisis Hancock laughs as it snows. The snivelling little Westminster worm, Michael Gove, loves the snow so much, he's hoovering it up with his nose. Season's greetings from Cold War Steve and I, as Christmas is upon us once more. So join me for the daily Cold War Steve Advent Calendar door reveals, before we all perish in a nuclear war. Merry Christmas. Cold War Steve Advent Calendar opening videos coming to Twitter, Instagram and TikTok December 1. Who's behind door number 1 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Coronation Street's Roy Cropper and ex-footballer Peter Beardsley. Peter Beardsley is an ex-footballer, whereas Roy Cropper is played by David Neilson, who, though not an ex-footballer, is a lifelong supporter of Leicester City, a team comprised entirely of future ex-footballers. And yet David Neilson is also the name of a Danish ex-footballer. However, just to clarify, this is not the David Neilson who is an ex-footballer, pictured here with Peter Beardsley who is also an ex-footballer. It's the David Neilson who is not an ex-footballer. Peter Beardsley, despite his name, sadly does not actually have a beard. It's annoying when someone's surname contains or consists entirely of the word beard, and yet they choose not to adorn their face with a beard. For example, American rock band ZZ Top are well known for their long beards, apart from the drummer, who is clean-shaven, yet his name is Frank Beard. He's taking the piss. There are many famous people with the surname Beard, yet few, if any, actually have a beard. I mean, we'll let Mary Beard off, obviously, but some of them are clearly having a laugh. Like 19th century American painter William Holbrook Beard, who had a massive moustache, but a rather pathetic attempt at a beard being just a lower underlip sprouting of hair. Worse than that is fellow 19th century American neurologist George Miller Beard, who had gigantic sideburns that extended around and covered his cheeks, yet his upper lip and chin were completely clean-shaven. Come on, notable 19th century American men with the surname Beard, sort it out, FFS. Who's behind door number 2 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Christmas Noel, Noel Edmonds, Pat Butcher and Roy Evans, Schnorbits the dog, and Raoul Moat. What a fantastic festive fivesome of fun. If Raoul Moat is in attendance, you can be sure that Gaza, wielding a fishing rod, a 6-pack of lager and a pre-cooked chicken, can't be too far away. Schnorbits was the stage dog partner of comedian Bernie Winters, who replaced Schnorbits with another St. Bernard dog after the original Schnorbits got old and died. However, when Bernie Winters died, Schnorbits didn't replace Bernie Winters with another Bernard. No, He could have done. He could have replaced Bernie Winters with Bernie Sumner, the lead singer from New Order. That would have made some sort of poetic sense, almost. But no, he didn't. Schnorbitz instead retired from show business, or, if you will, schnorbitzness, and spent the rest of his dog days doing whatever St. Bernard dogs do, which is, as far as I'm aware, delivering small barrels of brandy attached to their collar to people having a bit of a hard time up a mountain or something. I wonder how that works. When you call the usual emergency services, they ask if you want an ambulance, police or fire service. If you call Mountain Rescue, do they say, would you like a helicopter, rescue team on foot, or would you like a St. Bernard dog to bring you a small barrel of brandy? Or do they ask you what your emergency is? Fallen down an icy ravine, got lost in the wilderness, or just fancy a wee dram of brandy? Anyway, I think that Schnorbitz not replacing Bernie Winters with another Bernie after he died just demonstrates how much more loyal dogs are than people. We should all be more like dogs. Apart from the bum-sniffing behaviour, of course. Ugh. Who's behind door number 3 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Victorian Walter the Softy from the Beano himself, Jacob Rees-Mogg, where he belongs, behind bars doing time. And time for Jacob Rees-Mogg is, of course, stuck in the 1800s. And by 1800, I don't mean 6 p.m. written in the 24-hour clock format or military time as it's known in the US of A. I mean, of course, the decade of the Gregorian calendar that began on January the 1st, 1800 and continued until December 31st, 1899. Oh, God, this is going to be a tough Rees-Mogg slog, I warn you now. Looking up information about antique haunted hobby horse Jacob Rees-Mogg to try and find something mildly humorous to say about him resulted in me spending way too much of my time reading tedious information about the most predictable, dull life of wealth and privilege you can possibly imagine. In fact, if you have trouble sleeping, I highly recommend you read 1800s etching of Where's Wally, Jacob Rees-Mogg's Wikipedia entry. It's guaranteed to have you sound asleep in no time. Although, I have found a few amusing anagrams of Jacob Rees-Mogg. Argos Job McGee. Jaggermoose BC. You have to say that in like a Mick Jagger voice, don't you? Jaggermoose BC. Cum Job Sagger. Ugh. And my favourite, Bojo's Cream Egg. Well, thankfully that's all for today. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Who's behind door number 4 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why? Hello, campers. It's some of the cast of the popular BBC 1980s holiday camp-based sitcom Hi-de-Hi being pundits for the 1974 World Cup. Obvs. In an episode of Hi-de-Hi shown in 1982 on a Sunday evening at 7:15 on BBC One, Maplin's holiday camp comedian Ted Baby Bovis tries to make some money out of the holiday campers by, and I'm not making this up, showing a hardcore porn film and charging £1 a ticket. Well, it was the 1980s. Anything went in those days. I remember an episode of George and Mildred where the vicar had come to their house for donations for the church jumble sale, and Mildred accidentally gave the vicar a box full of George's dirty porno mags, making it more of a grumble sale. Do people still buy dirty magazines? These days, I guess it's more 3D virtual reality internet deepfake revenge porn or something. When I was growing up, it was a kind of rite of passage, or coming of age, if you pardon the pun, to discover a discarded dirty mag in a woods or the hedges of a park. I always wondered how they got there. Similar to the Tooth Fairy, but for jazz mags, was there a porno pixie or a grumble goblin going about the UK hiding porno mags in woods and hedges in the 70s and 80s? Or were they placed there by nature botherers like Ray Mears and Bear Grylls, acting like some kind of grubby porno mag smutty Santa, placing copies of Razzle in copse and thicket, whilst eating leaves and drinking their own wee-wee? Yeah! Wouldn't put it past them. Dirty sods. Is Razzle still being published? I remember as a kid when having a sneaky peek at the newsagent's top shelf, there was a dirty mag called Forum, which seemed to be a more sophisticated porno mag. The kind you could imagine Tony Hadley from Spandau Ballet or Brian Ferry nonchalantly leafing through whilst having their 11s in their conservatory, before presumably going upstairs to the bathroom and whacking one out. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this trip down Dirty Mag Memory Lane. Or should that be Mammary Lane? Soz. Who's behind door number 5 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's the gaffer himself, the Gaffmeister, ex-EastEnders actor Dean Gaffney. Here he is in costume for a panto.
Oh, no, he isn't.
Oh, yes, he is. In 2015, Gaffney starred in the panto Aladdin, or, if you will, Aladdin Gaffney. Yes. How does Dean Gaffney like his coffee? Dean Gaffinated, of course. Dean Gaffney is famous for playing Robbie Jackson in EastEnders. What's going on? Have a word. I can't believe I'm hearing this. I'm going up west. I'm off down to Vic. Who's doing the catering? Ian Bill. Someone's torched the car lot. The Queen Vic's on fire again. Ricky Pate. Robbie Jackson, who Dean Gaffney played, was a character that was rarely seen without his dog called Wellard. Unfortunately, Wellard is also the nickname that Gaffney has given to his little fella, or if you will, cock. Thanks for that, Dean, though we don't want to see you taking that particular Wellard for a walk around Albert Square with a collar round its neck unless you want to be arrested and placed on a register. Although that sort of behaviour may be acceptable in Prince Albert Square, a Prince Albert being, of course, the name given to a piercing of the male genitalia, or, if you will again, cock. Again. Sorry, this calendar door opening commentary has taken a turn for the obscene. Most people opening the door to their advent calendars are receiving a small chocolate or a picture of a heartwarming Christmas scene, yet here I am opening today's Cold War Steve advent calendar and regaling you with chat about Dean Gaffney's phallus. It's hardly festive, is it? Unless it's wearing a little Santa hat. Sorry, I'm doing it again. I used to be a serious actor, you know. Yeah. Award-winning British film, major television adverts, plays at the Edinburgh Festival, and now what's it going to be? Oh, I know you. You're that Dean Gaffney's cock guy. Oh, look, it's that Dean Gaffney's cock guy off the internet. I wonder what the next stage of my career, in inverted commas, holds in store for me. At this rate, probably OnlyFans. Merry Christmas. Who's behind door number 6 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Nigel Farage, banged up in the slammer. And no, that's not a euphemism. Yes, it's Farage behind bars. Or, if you will, Farage doing porridge. What a fed-up-looking forlorn Farage. Nigel Farage. A kind of tobacco-stained, gin-soaked racist reptilian Arthur Daly, minus the charm and business acumen, can often be seen in YouTube adverts offering financial advice. Are you sure, Nige? You're the guy who blew $10,000 betting on Donald Trump winning the last election and getting a second term. Though, in all fairness to Farage, his head was rammed so far up Trump's rump that he mistook Trump's tonsils for his testicles, so he probably didn't have any idea what was going on, being, as he is, an embarrassingly eager participant in a Trump-headed human centipede. Farage ferociously fighting for first dibs on Donald's derriere. Trusting shifty Nige with your finances is like trusting the Tories with the NHS. Or trusting them with anything, actually. Sorry, Nige, Martin Lewis, you ain't. Martin Lewis? No, it's Paul Lewis, isn't it? The financial advisor fella you see on the telly? No, hold on, it's Martin Lewis, the money supermarket fella. Or is that the Meerkats? Wait, wasn't Martin Lewis a newsreader? Who's the bloke who used to be on the news but then became an independent politician and started wearing white suits all the time? That wasn't Martin Lewis or a meerkat. Martin Bell. That's who I was thinking of. Anyway, I'm not sure why talking about Nigel Farage made me think of Martin Bell. I think we've come to the end. Or to summarise, Nigel Farage, Bell, end. Who's behind door number 7 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's 1980s power couple, top 10 top of the pops Peter Pan of pop, Cliff Richard, and Wimbledon tennis supremo, Sue Barker. 40, love. Yes, it was 40 years ago that Cliff and Wimbledon wonder Sue Barker fell in love, whilst eating strawberries and cream that had been served up at Wimbledon, probably. No mixed doubles for Sue and Cliff. Mr. Richard is a one-devil-woman man, and Sue is too classy a lady to get up to those kind of shenanigans. Sue is strictly singles only. Sadly, after a few months, Richard gave Barker the tennis elbow. But, happily for Sue, it was a case of new balls, please, when she met a policeman who she later married. Cliff said recently in an interview with Razzle magazine, "When we started to court, Sue sent my heart into a backspin. It was game, set and match. I was game, my heart was set on Sue, and I thought we were a perfect match. But Sue was new to this love game, so I had the advantage. Even though I thought Sue was ace, it was only when we got into an argument that Sue admitted she found my music to be a bit of a racket. This pushed me to break point, and I told Sue I wanted to take a mini break. Sue was furious. She shouted, 'I'm not 15, love.' I didn't understand what she meant and replied, 'What the deuce?' Sue screamed at me and said, 'At this rate you will forever be a bachelor boy.' Sue was upset because I knew she wanted children, but I explained to her that I was an unseeded player. Sue asked me why I didn't tell her beforehand. I couldn't carry on like this, so I just stormed out and gave the door a grand slam and went off on a summer holiday. When I found out later Sue had got married, I phoned her up and said, 'Congratulations!' Then drowned my sorrows with mistletoe and wine. Sue will always be my pretty one. I thought about getting myself a living doll, sex robot, but I just don't have the heart. When Cliff was asked if he was still in contact with Sue Barker, he replied abruptly, 'We don't talk anymore.' And with that, he roller skated off into the night. Who's behind door number 8 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Robert Smith from the band The Cure and the late Stuart Adamson from the band Big Country, wearing football costumes, football uniforms, football outfits, clothes that people wear when they play football. Robert Smith couldn't really abbreviate his name to Bob Smith, could he? I mean, he doesn't look like a Bob Smith. Bob Smith sounds like the name of a manager of a local DIY store, the kind of chap who knows his way around a toolbox and is quite happy creosoting his fences and shed at the weekend. Whereas Robert Smith is more likely to know his way around a makeup box and would probably paint his fences and shed black, then lock himself alone in his black shed, listening to downbeat glum goth pop, whilst shoegazing in a baggy jumper and drinking cider and blackcurrant. However, referring to Robert Smith as Bob Smith is something I find quite amusing, and shall be calling him Bob Smith from now on. The Cure's most well-known song is probably Friday I'm in Love, a song based around listing the days of the week and then saying something about each particular day, similar to what Craig David does in his song 7 Days. But comparing the two, who had the better week? Craig David or Bob Smith? Bob Smith's week consists of the days being blue, grey, black, falling apart, and him having his heart broken, watching the walls, or having consecutive heart attacks. On Friday, Bob's in love, yes, but he doesn't specify with who or what. Whereas Craig David's week consists of meeting a young lady and within 48 hours going to bed with her and spending the rest of the week at it like rabbits until chilling on the Sunday. Let's hope David didn't catch or indeed pass on an STD to the young lady he slept with after just meeting her. Dirty David. Maybe the B-side is called Burns When I Wee. Or perhaps 7 days refers to the length of time it will take Craig David to complete his course of antibiotics. On the face of it, Craig David had a better week than Bob Smith. Soz Bob. Who's behind door number 9? It won't be him, surely. It's okay, I haven't gone all Kanye. Of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar. Let's have a look. Why? It's 2 of the main cast members of 1990s sitcom Watching. I didn't watch Watching, did you watch Watching? Looking up information about Watching, it was a sitcom about the relationship between a man who is a bird watcher and a woman who is a people watcher. Swap the gender interests round and it's a totally different show. If the woman was the bird watcher and the man was a people watcher, it suddenly sounds really dodgy. I doubt the couple would have got together at all if, when they met, the bird-watching woman asked the man what he does, and he replied, "I'm a people watcher. I watch people." I imagine she would have made her excuses and left, and probably contacted the police, and the show would have ended after the first episode. Is people watcher an actual hobby or just a criminal offence waiting to happen? Birdwatchers have pocketbooks about birds and look for different species, noting down what they see in a notebook. A people watcher's notebook would read like the sinister scrawlings of a serial killer. I watched a man and what appeared to be his wife arguing in the park, but I kept out of sight in a hedge so as not to startle them, and they argued all the way home. I know, I followed them. If a policeman caught you people watching and then after searching you found such a notebook and read it, you would probably be placed on some kind of register, or, ironically, a watch list, and the police would certainly be watching out for you in the future. If watching was made today, they probably would swap the gender interests round, wouldn't they? And make it a dark comedy, because everything has to be dark and gritty these days. And comedy makers seem to have forgotten that a comedy needs to be funny, which is something it seems I also forgot when creating this video. Soz. Who's behind door number 10 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why? It's Wolf from Gladiators! What's Wolf doing these days, I wonder? Is he still gladiating? I mean, I don't know where you would go to do that sort of thing these days. Is there a special place you can go to do that? It's a shame this isn't a photo of Wolf wearing a woolly jumper. Then I could make a joke about Wolf in sheep's clothing. Maybe these days Wolf has become a florist, swapping gladiators for gladioli. Or maybe he's become a central heating engineer. That's right, swapping gladiators for radiators. When Matthew Corbett was performing The Sooty Show for the Royal Variety at the London Palladium, the cast of Gladiators were also appearing at the theatre. Matthew was taken aback when he later went backstage to find Wolf from Gladiators trying to squeeze into one of Sooty's puppet friends' little waistcoats. Yes, Corbett was shocked to see Wolf in sweep's clothing. We're used to seeing Wolf in tight spandex leotards, but when he's relaxing at home, Wolf likes nothing more than lounging about in a toga. So imagine the surprise when Bob Smith, manager of Cleethorpes Marks and Spencers, was alerted to a customer trying on a variety of items in the bed linen department. Yes, Bob was stunned to see Wolf in sheets clothing. And finally, multiple Oscar-winning American actress Meryl Streep didn't have to act astonished when, and I think you can see where this one is going, she came home to find Wolf from Gladiators trying on several of her expensive dresses. Yes, Meryl was annoyed to see Wolf in such expensive dresses, and being so muscular he'd stretched them out of all proportion and ruined them. Sorry, were you expecting a different ending to that? LOL. Who's behind door number 11 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Dick and Dom in da prison cell. Yes, it's Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings where they belong, in jail. Well, what can I say about Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings that won't just be 2 minutes of me screaming obscenities? Boris Johnson, a kind of utterly corrupt, narcissistic, sociopathic, priapic bungle from Rainbow. No offence to Bungle. And pantomime villain slime bag Dominic Cummings. No offence to bags of slime. Our Bungle would have been a much better Prime Minister than Bozo Johnson, obviously. Bungle wouldn't have flown off to Sex Mountain to have bunga parties with Putin's mates, although he may have had the odd bungle party, eating jelly and cake with Jeffrey, Zippy and George and probably Rod, Jane and Freddie. I was going to say that Bungle's bungle parties would probably have had a lot less shagging than Bozo's bunga parties up Sex Mountain, but after hearing what Rod, Jane and Freddie got up to, I'm not so sure. From what I've read about them, it seems they were the Fleetwood Mac of children's entertainers. Dirty sods. Of course, with Bungle as PM, we would have to face his bizarre behaviour of being stark Billy Bollocks naked during the day, but wearing full pyjamas when he goes to bed. Bungle also wore a towel round his waist after having a bath. Why did he suddenly become coy after having a bath about having his prawn and walnut on view? Mind you, we saw similar odd clothing behaviour from Bozo Johnson, apart from him always looking like a sack of shit tied round the middle with a piece of string. Remember when he pretended that he was just like ordinary people and liked football and wore a football shirt over his shirt and tie? Ugh. Bungle's odd clothing antics would probably be the least of our concerns, having a clumsy bear as Prime Minister, albeit an empty costume bear suit being controlled by the machinations of unseen men. An empty suit controlled by the machinations of unseen men? Doesn't sound too far off from what we had with Bozo Johnson in number 10. That being said, I know that our Bungle wouldn't have let the bodies pile high and parted on whilst tens of thousands of people needlessly died due to his negligence, corruption, narcissism and ineptness. Forget lurid decorations paid for by donors. I hope Boris Johnson and his former puppeteer, Dominic Cummings, will soon have to get used to the decorations of bars, cold steel and concrete in their new home in prison. Who's behind door number 12 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's comedy impressionist Bobby Davro, dressed as George Michael. George Michael is one of the greatest singer-songwriters of all time. And similarly, Bobby Davro is one of the grey, old comedians from the 1980s who now, without a hint of irony, is constantly doing the rounds and going on multiple TV shows, whinging, moaning and complaining about how they don't have a voice, can't get on the telly anymore and can't get their right-wing views aired because of wokeness. And it's the woke who are the snowflakes. Is it really? Davros. Davro. Got Bobby Davro mixed up with Davros, the creator of the Daleks from Doctor Who there. Actually, I wonder what Davros's full name is. Robert Davros, perhaps? Bobby, for short. Bobby Davros. Sounds like the name of a holiday camp cabaret singer. Is Davros his first name, and he just goes by the name of Davros, like what Madonna does with her name? Not that Davros is anything like Madonna, or Bobby Davro for that matter. Or is he? Davros created the Daleks, evil, merciless cyborgs who, despite being seemingly defeated, would somehow always return to spread terror across the galaxy. In a similar fashion, Bobby Davro created the show Bobby Davro on the Box in 1985, and despite it being seemingly cancelled after one series, would somehow always return with a similar show, albeit with a slightly different name, to spread his brand of humour across the schedules of ITV. Who's behind door number 13 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's that ever-popular double-act Premier League footballer Bukayo Saka and former Russian Premier Leonid Brezhnev. When those two crazy cats get together, you know there's going to be lols aplenty. And indeed there is. Here they are larking about and having a splashing time in a swimming pool. Sadly, despite Saka and the lads' best efforts, England were knocked out of the World Cup by France. Would we have won the match had we Leonid Brezhnev in our squad? I don't know, but I know that at some point Leonard certainly would have stuck the ball in the back of the net. It's good to see Leonard Brezhnev on the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar. I wondered when a former Soviet-era Russian premier would put in an appearance. Looks like Leonard is having a nice relaxing swim before he goes Russian about to finish his Christmas shopping and drop of some Christmas presents. Leonard, or Len to his mates, was denied entry into the swimming pool until Saka said, "Come on, let Len in." Russian writer Dostoevsky came home to his rented flat to find his landlord had installed an inner door that had a spring-loaded closing mechanism. When he asked why such a thing was needed, the landlord replied, "It's a fire door, Dostoevsky." Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow because I really must go. Who's behind door number 14 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Mr. Democracy Manifest himself, Cecil George Edwards, also known as Jack Kay. If you haven't seen his hilarious arrest video, I highly recommend you check it out. But allow me, if you will, to perform it for you now as Phil Mitchell from EastEnders dressed as Santa in my little nativity play, Filmocracy Mitchell Fest.
What's going on? Just a moment. You just assured me that I could speak. Look, I'm under what? I can't believe I'm hearing this. Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest. Have a look at the headlock here. See that chap over there? Get your hand off my penis! This is the bloke who got me on the penis before. Why did you do this to me? For what reason? What is the charge? Eating a meal? A succulent Chinese meal? Hey? Oh. That's a nice headlock, sir. Oh. Oh, yes. I see that you know your judo well. Good one. And you, sir, are you waiting to receive my limp penis? Oh dear. Get your hands off me! Ta-da and farewell.
Anyway, I'm off Dan Novick for a succulent Christmas meal. Ta-ta and farewell. Until tomorrow. Who's behind door number 15 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's legendary footballer Diego Maradona. Maradona infamously scored a goal against England in the 1986 World Cup quarter-finals using his hand. If only we'd had VAR back then, eh? This took the score to 1-0 to Argentina, who went on to win the match 2-1, and England were sent home. This infamous goal became known as the Hand of God. Though, had Maradona scored the goal whilst singing We Are Sailing, and also been wearing tight leopard print trousers and a blonde spiky wig, the goal may well have been called the Hand of Rod. Perhaps if Diego had scored this goal with his hand whilst riding a Vespa scooter and dressed in a parka, it could have been named the Hand of Mod. Alternatively, had Maradona scored whilst holding a feather duster in his hand, this goal may well have been christened the Hand of Dodd. Ken Dodd, the comedian, used to use a feather duster as a tickling stick. Oh, please yourselves. After he retired from football, it's a shame Diego Maradona didn't open up a sunbed salon called the Tanned of God. He could also have opened up a butcher's shop and named it the Ham of God. Maradona could have decided to move into the supplying and laying of garden turf with a business called the Hand of Sod. However, after hanging up his football boots, or should that be his football gloves, I'm most disappointed that Maradona didn't open up a fish and chip shop called the Hand of Cod, in which he could have served a hand of cod burger comprising of, yes, you guessed it, 5 fish fingers. And of course, a Maradona kebab. Oh, looks like I've been shown the red card. See you tomorrow. Who's behind door number 16 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's a semi-naked co-founder of the Leave.eu campaign, Aaron Banks. Aaron in prison, or Brexiter Banks banged up behind bars. Beautiful. Leave.eu has gone into liquidation, with Banks, ironically, writing off a £7 million loan. I don't know where this money came from, and I certainly won't be rushing to any conclusions as to who put in this money into Leave.eu's account. Allegedly. I have to say, for legal reasons. This photo of a semi-naked Aaron Banks is less Leave EU and more Leave EU. Anyway, I'm glad we can only see European Union hater Banks from the shoulders up. Personally, I don't want to see his Brussels. Or, for that matter, his withered little parsnip. Ugh, soz. Aaron Banks apparently went after, of all people, Noel Edmonds, who Banks claimed owed him £1 million. Banks hunted Edmonds down to New Zealand, where Edmonds now lives. I don't know how this panned out, but I hope Noel dealt with the situation by raising his middle finger to Banks, saying, "No deal," then pulling down his trousers and pants and telling Aaron to kiss his crinkly bottom. Anyway, after giving you that mental image, you're welcome. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye! Who's behind door number 17 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's legendary Scottish footballer turned pundit, Charlie Nicholas, holding a scary-looking Santa doll. He looks possessed. The Santa doll, not Charlie. Anyway, from the looks of him, he looks like he's going to terrorise a small community during the Christmas period, committing serial murder. Again, the Santa doll, not Charlie Nicholas. I'm sure Nicholas would never terrorise a small community during Christmas or indeed any other time of the year. And I'm sure serial murder is the furthest thing from Charlie Nicholas's mind, especially during the festive period. That's one hell of a leather jacket Charlie's sporting there. It looks like he's wearing an entire cow. I imagine if he turned round, we'd see some udders on the back. Mind you, the udders on the back of the jacket could be used to hold a football inside, so Charlie could always have a kick-a-bat wherever he was. And perhaps some of the teats on the udder could contain Lucozade for Charlie to suckle on at half-time. Soz. At first, I thought this was a picture of another Nicholas, Nicholas Lyndhurst, who plays Rodney in Only Fools and Horses. Though for ex-football star Charlie, it's less Only Fools and Horses and more Only Goals and Passes. Well, after that, I think I'll show myself the red card. See you tomorrow. Who's behind door number 18 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Randy Quaid as Cousin Eddie in the film Christmas Vacation. Hold on a minute. Randy Quaid as Cousin Eddie in the film Christmas Vacation. I feel a song coming on. Here we go. Give me a beat. Randy Quaid as Cousin Eddie in the film Christmas Vacation. Randy Quaid as Cousin Eddie in the film Christmas Vacation. Randy Quaid as Cousin Eddie in the film Christmas Vacation. That also stars Chevy Chase, and Beverly D'Angelo. Beverly D'Angelo, Randy Quaid, Chevy Chase, and Beverly D'Angelo in the film Christmas Vacation. Randy Quaid. Well, after that, I know what Christmas film you'll be watching tonight. That's right. Die Hard. Who's behind door number 19 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's another former co-founder of Leave.eu and now leader of Reform UK, a rebranded Brexit party, Richard Tice, doing time in the tank. Terrific. Richard Tice, hoping to be the next Nigel Farage in the new talentless show Britain's Got Arseholes. Normally, when I do these videos, I research the person, as hard as that may be to believe when you watch some of them, so I can write a monologue, hopefully peppered with gags related to the person and what they do. But you can imagine the kind of predictable, hate-fueled bile I was coming across researching this character. So to save you having to spend too much time in his company and to save me having to wade through any more of his Brexit and bile, I'm going to keep this short and sweet with the following. Richard Tice. It's Tice to see you, twat. Who's behind door number 20 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's legendary TV weathermen Ian McCaskill and Michael Fish. I wondered whether they would make an appearance. It's just as well there's only 2 weathermen here, because of course 2's company and 3's a cloud. I wonder what Christmas present to buy Michael Fish this year. Maybe some new thunderwear. When Ian McCaskill won Weatherman of the Year in 1984, he accepted the award with great humidity. Michael Fish was very upset when the Queen passed away. He was sad that her reign was over. Ian McCaskill was a keen baker. His favourite cake was lemon drizzle. Michael Fish rarely speaks about politics, but he does admit he is a fan of Jacob Rees-Mogg. Ian McCaskill was a keen fisherman, but he did have a tendency to overcast. Michael Fish loves a pantomime.
Oh, no, he doesn't.
Oh, yes, he does. And his favourite is not Snow White, as you'd expect, but is in fact Sleeting Beauty.
Oh, no, it isn't.
Yes, it is. Shut up. Ian McCaskill's favourite Bond film was most likely Diamonds Are for Weather. Or maybe Weather Say Weather Again. And possibly Tomorrow Weather Dies. Michael Fish would never stay at the Ice Hotel in Sweden, but he would be up for a few drinks in the ISO bar. Ian McCaskill always travelled by bus, as he could never hail a taxi. Michael Fish's favourite song by Rod Stewart is Muggy May. Anyway, time to go, as I'm about to have a shower. Sorry if you didn't enjoy this video. Each one is different and some are better than others. You can always check my Twitter feed if you think you may have missed any. Bye! Who's behind door number 21 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why? Beware, beware of the ghastly Gove who dwells within his cell. Moist and pale and motionless, he sits in slimy silence and waits. When darkness falls, he slithers and slimes out of the confines of his cell and underneath the prison gates. Oozing his way across the moors, he finds a house in darkness, its owner fast asleep. Sliming through the letterbox and into the hallway, then up the stairs he creeps. Sliding neath the bedroom door, the ghastly Gove squelches towards the man who is sleeping soundly in the bed. Then the ghastly Gove shoots his pointed tongue into the man's ear, piercing his eardrum, then his brain. Shocked awake, the man's face twisted in fear and pain, then seconds later, dead. The ghastly Gove then feeds in a frenzy, sucking the brain and its juices out and laughing with terrible glee. Once satisfied, the ghastly Gove oozes down the stairs, back into the hallway, and out through the letterbox. The scene of his latest crime he doth flee, sliming his way back across the moors, returning to the prison to seep beneath its doors, and slithering back into his cell unseen just as the sun rises, a skill performed often and with much deft. Once back in his cell he sits, moist, motionless and pale. Why, it's as if he had never left. The prison guards, the governor, the fellow inmates know, nobody knows the true terrifying horror of the ghastly Gove. Who's behind door number 22 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Jeremy Spake off of that old reality TV show The Airport, and Jane McDonald off of that old reality TV show The Cruise. After singing on cruise ships for several years, Jane McDonald swapped Cruising into the Sun for Cruising Straight to #1 when she recorded her first album and it topped the pop charts. Since then, McDonald has swapped ships for hits with several more chart-topping albums, and has then swapped hits back for ships again by doing more shows about cruises. Jane McDonald then went on to swap cruise singing for loose women when she became a presenter of the ITV show of the same name. After 9 years of appearing on Loose Women, Jane swapped chatting on the box for scatting wearing frocks when she returned to crooning jazz songs on tour around the UK. In 1998, Jane McDonald swapped singing bangers for spinning spanners when she married the cruise ship's plumbing engineer. Yes, she literally became the plumber's mate. Sadly, it was leaked to the press that the marriage had gone down the drain, which must have been a wrench for McDonald, but happily the offers flooded in and Jane swapped her husband for a house band when she went on tour to promote her new album. Jane McDonald is not planning on getting married again anytime soon, and in fact has swapped dating the best fellas for creating bestsellers after writing 2 best-selling autobiographies. Jeremy Spake, on the other hand, has swapped The Airport for The Airport when, after his reality show The Airport about Heathrow Airport was cancelled, he became Deputy Director of the Isle of Man Airport in 2018. However, recently, Jeremy has swapped The Airport for The Airport again when he left the Isle of Man Airport to return to Heathrow Airport to present a new series of The Airport for BBC One called The Airport Back in the Skies. Oh. Taxi! I awoke from a terrible nightmare, soaked in sweat. 6 shrouded figures with disturbed, contorted faces had appeared in my room. "She's here for you," they said in unison. Their eyes were deadly blank, and they seemed to be in a trance-like state, controlled by an unseen force. Powerless to stop them, they carried me downstairs and into the hallway. It was then that I saw her. The smirking evil herself, Priti Patel, stood smirking and staring directly at me. Suddenly and without warning, she punched the hallway mirror, sending shattering shards down into the carpet below. "That's 7 years bad luck," I said. "Bad luck wouldn't dare visit me," she smirked, and I believed her. "What do you want?" I asked. "You're being deported to Rwanda tonight," she replied. "But I'm a British citizen. I was born here," I protested. "I have revoked your citizenship. It's time to go," she said in a bored, flat tone. The 6 shrouded figures began to carry me along the corridor towards the front door, and I knew I had very little time left. Instinctively, I grabbed a piece of the shattered mirror and held it up towards Priti Patel's smirking eyes. Caught off guard, she stared into the mirror and saw her evil reflected back at her. A feedback loop of pure evil as she gazed into her own eyes, and the evil looked back into what remained of her soul. She let out a blood-curdling scream and fell to the floor. The 6 shrouded figures released their hold on me and turned looking at each other in confusion, their faces relaxed. Priti Patel's control over them had been broken. "Thank you," they said to me, not as one but as individual beings. Then they turned their attention to Priti Patel and picked her up off the floor and carried her down the corridor towards the front door. "Where are you taking me, Rwanda?" she cried. "No, we're taking you where you belong, to hell." With that, the front door was flung open and Priti Patel, carried by the 6 shrouded figures, swirling like a black tornado, entered a fiery portal that, as soon as it had appeared and opened up, suddenly snapped shut, taking Priti Patel to her doom. Then my eyes flicked open and I lay drenched in sweat. Priti Patel's face still imprinted on my mind's eye. I took a shower and walked downstairs to make myself a cup of tea. I carried the tea towards the front room, but crossing the hallway, I winced in pain as something sharp cut into my foot. I looked down to see shards of glass glistening in the carpet. The hallway mirror was smashed. What the? But this had been a dream, hadn't it? I pulled a small shard of glass out of my heel and hobbled into the front room, switched on the TV and placed a folded tissue under my foot. The news came on, and there was Suella Silverman speaking with sadistic relish about her dreams of Rwanda deportation flights. Dream or not, I thought to myself, pure evil never dies. It just finds another willing host to carry out its horrors. I switched off the TV, turning my head towards the window, and stared out into the overcast morning sky. Who's behind door number 24 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's our Christmas guests. Let's see who's come to pay us a Yuletide visit. We have Ainsley Harriott, Ronnie Corbett, Faith Brown, James Corden, Ollie Murs. Well, we've got the Murs, so where's the gold and frankincense? And who's that in the corner? Why, it's a festive Fred West. Come on, no one puts Westy in the corner. What a wonderful scene to behold. Friends together, celebrating Christmas, living in the moment, and not a mobile phone in sight. Beautiful. Although, joking aside, I can't believe Cold War Steve has included that particular person in this group, especially considering his heinous crimes. Yes, I'm sure many people will be offended to see the inclusion of James Corden in this picture. Dabs corners of mouth with comedy napkin after savouring this delicious morsel. He really should be cordoned off. Well, I think all that's left for me to say is to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Chucks! Why, it's our Scylla. Merry Christmas, Scylla. Or should I say, Merry Scyllamus, everybody. Though you really shouldn't be there, Scylla. That door's reserved for someone else. I don't care. Well, all the same, I think you should probably let them have their... I'm not moving. That's not very festive. Surprise, surprise, kiss my ass. But this door has been reserved for them. Bollocks to 'em, Chuck. Oh, come on. Hey, spin on this, you tosser. Please. I'm not fucking budging. Look, will you just say no? Bollocks!